Добрый день.
Good afternoon, dear participants. Today we're going to talk about the prospects of stock exchange. My name is Evgeniya Bogdanova. I'm CEO of AFSA, and today I have a panel of experts: Maxim Kabanov, Chief Business Officer, Qanat Invest Limited; Yerzhan Mussin, CEO, Fonte Capital; Alexey Panyushkin. Diakovskiy, Managing Director, ETFs; and Alexey Panyushkin, Director of Business Development, Abylai Global Solutions. Every year, Stock Exchange carries out its own panel session dedicated to the market, stocks and bonds. This year, for the first time, we have a panel dedicated to ETF. That speaks to the growing interest to this market and to the fact that stock exchange instruments are becoming more and more numerous. Right now in Kazakhstan, at all the platforms are jointly about 300 ETFs are being traded, foreign ETFs. They're all cross-listed with international platforms, and we already have 4 local ETFs. And going ahead of myself, I will say that today we will announce about the 5th ETF, but this will happen after our session. So going back to our topic. Stock exchange markets are similar to the share markets because they all invest into the same market, but ETF is traded as a simple share. My first question to Maxim: what are the advantages that you see, advantages and the risk related to investing ETF in comparison to the direct investment into shares and bonds? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Evgeniya, thank you so much for this invitation to the panel discussion. Going back to your question regarding the advantages and disadvantages or risks, first of all, let's talk about risks. And right now, I see risks such as infrastructure, risk related to management, to the right distribution, related to ETF policy and the mandate, making sure that the company is in line with that. So the right strategy that needs to be chosen. And I remember there was this case in the world history when we had COVID. There was one great ETF in US, WTI, for oil. Nobody really asked themselves how can the managing company invest in that. And back then, of course, it was an extraordinary situation at the market when oil prices dropped down. That also happens, actually. So this ETF basically broke down, and it stopped reflecting the dynamics like it was supposed to. WTI dynamic of oil in US. So these risks exist, and unfortunately, you cannot move away from those risks completely because new risks will appear. Most importantly is the infrastructure-related risks, management company risks, so those who manage these ETFs. But if you can manage something, that's great. Then the advantage for the investors is that they can freely invest into the assets that otherwise are hard to buy, maybe in different regions or different securities. If it's a mix of securities, for retail investors, it's a great advantage. When you have a small amount, you can invest in the whole mix. And basically, you can't afford it otherwise. So it's a great diversification tool. This enables one to build their portfolio properly and manage their capital properly. This is definitely an advantage and a great help to investors. Thank you, Maxim. Yerzhan, We know that stock exchange allow us to invest into shares, bond, and into other categories. We know recently a public ETF for Bitcoin was issued. This is the first tool on our market. Can you tell us more about this issuance, and what conclusions can we draw from that? Thank you very much, Evgeniya. It's great to speak on such an interesting topic, and even greater that 2 weeks ago we finalized the launch of our first ETF for Bitcoin. And actually, the path towards registration was not an easy one, and I think it took us about half a year. So from the very beginning to the very end, we quite actively participated all the issues. What is ETF for Bitcoin? It seems that it's just some simple product, but it links to markets. Our traditional financial market, stock exchange market, with the emerging in the last 10 years market of digital assets. And basically, building bridges between these markets is exactly the goal that we pursue, and it's not an easy one. We had this general idea to do so, and thanks to our colleagues, our partners, and that we worked with jointly, we discussed all the details, settlement, storage, and we had great fruitful work with AX, with regulator, and it is thanks to all of us that we were able to launch this product. And actually, it exceeded all our expectations. We analyzed it, and if we look at the foreign mass media, we see that there were many publications. We actually didn't even haven't heard about this mass media previously, and it's great that new audience learned about this news. So about 50 million people heard about us. So definitely, this was a very symbolic moment for us and for AFSA. I believe that this is a new driver of growth, and we will definitely do our best to make more of such products. Generally, I believe the project was successful, and we're now actively working with various market makers, and we want to expand the volume to make sure that this product is accessible to the national investors, make sure they can buy a bigger amount of ETF for Bitcoin, and we also actively working on various conditions for service providers of this market, and I believe that in the nearest future we will see new products. And so, generally speaking, I think everything went well and will even be better in the future. Thank you. Thank you. Alexander. ITA started this year with the first Islamic Sharia ETF in Central Asia and Caucasus. This is not only the first local ETF, which is in line with Sharia principles, but it is also oriented at a wide range of investors with an accessible entry point. So before launching, you believe that about 1 million investors will be able to buy this instrument. Were your expectations met? Thank you for such a compliment towards our fund. We are very much satisfied with the development of FTSS fund. Just over half a year, it brought over 13% of growth, and I believe this figure speaks for itself. It is a diversified fund, and it includes the largest companies in the world. So the quality of this fund brings no doubts. Investors are very numerous. They are both Muslim and non-Muslim. And since January this year, they were able to use it. As for our hopes and expectations for 1 million, they remain relevant, and it is actually just a minimum threshold that we're hoping to achieve. At the same time, we understand that in order for us to reach this number, we all have a lot of work to do. We need to train our investors, we need to educate them, and we need to further develop this ETF, and we need to make sure that investors trust us. And we also need to promote this instrument abroad. We had an agreement with Evgeniya. We're working very actively with the Muslim investors and Muslim community. We explained what this ETF is, how it works, what it means, and we have a Brazilian company, IPS Capital, has highly qualified Sharia council consisting of a mufti with international experience. They help us greatly when it comes to investors' education, raising awareness, and explaining how this fund should work. We, as a platform, probably should do more when it comes to education and awareness raising. As for international expansion, this is another important aspect. Within AFD, we had ITS Ideas Conference on the 3rd of September. Many brokers from Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and many other Muslim countries were quite interested in this tool, and they work on coming to our platform and using this tool for their own investors, because in these countries there is a huge amount of people who are interested in investments that fully comply Islam norms. That's it. Thank you very much. Alexey, in your case, Abylai Global Solutions is mainly focused on professional investors with capital of $200,000 and more. Who are your main clients, and what is the weighted amount of Kazakhstani investments who can afford that? Thank you, Evgeniya, for your question, and thank you for the invitation. It's true that our company focuses more on large investors, private investors, as well as institutional ones. And actually, entry point is not even 200,000, but more 500,000. But that's not the point. We usually work with products for cloud investors, with non-stock exchange tools, and actually, we recently carried out a study of the Kazakhstani market, and according to the UBS data, as of today, about 50,000 wealthy investors are dollar millionaires in Kazakhstan, and UBS assesses Kazakhstani market when it comes to the number of wealthy people as one of the fast-growing countries for the next 3 to 5 years. And actually, we all understand that penetration of financial assets is quite low if we set aside these large investors. We do understand that there is real estate, there are many deposits, or since the financial literacy is still developing, financial investments, financial assets are not as developed. So ETFs is one of the key segments of the market that allow us to develop the culture of investment portfolio among private investors or retail investors. So a couple more words about the market, ETF market, how it could be further developed, it's important to have some fundamental factors that help local market to develop. And we can have Europe as an example. Maybe not everybody knows, but European retail investors cannot just buy BlackRock ETF. And since there is regulation in Europe that requires that those funds that are sold to the European investors need to comply with certain regulations. And BlackRock, for example, has funds that are specifically issued in Europe for European investors. These are the factors of regulation that enable local market to further develop. Another example in Russia. So there was a boom of the stock exchange, and it all started with the foreign funds. Why was it developed? Well, it's because retail investor could not really buy foreign shares of BlackRock. And that enabled the market to greatly develop. And I believe that the regulator needs to understand what is going to be the driver for the local ETF market development. This is not a simple path we need to understand, but we need to walk that path if we want to mature the market. But this is something for you to think. So that's that. Quite a challenge. But we see that the trend is already there. Thank you so much. I believe that with your help, we'll be able to understand where are those areas of focus. So continuing this topic, for retail, not all the areas are possible, and sometimes the entry point is very high. And Alexey talked about the precursors that are needed. What, in your view, we need for the investment funds? And how, in your view, will retail ETF market develop in Kazakhstan in the next 5 to 10 years? And that is a very interesting question. Actually, I believe that our market and retail market is developing. And even if we look at what we discussed, we have annual conference, Astana Finance Days. Now attracts more people. And as for ETFs, why professional investors and not so much the retail? This is an evolutionary process. This is something that is maybe new to the market, and they need to test the infrastructure, they need to test everything. And these are the professional investors that understand the product, they understand the risks, they understand the consequences, but as well as advantages and disadvantages. And retail investor is less protected, and they understand less as far as investments are concerned. This is, let's say, an additional or complementary part of their activity. They cannot constantly follow the market, etc. So retail investors and AFSA is stricter to retail investors with more disclosure than the professional ones. This is a normal evolutionary process where professional investors fine-tune the product, they remove all the obstacles, and then retail investors will come and be a part of that market.
this product will be crystallized and will be more appropriate. But it's not one of the factors. Financial literacy, as colleagues mentioned as well, this is one of the key aspects now. Step by step, it's growing in the country. There are a lot of activities, Telegram channels, a lot of capacity building, improving the financial literacy of the population. For the investor, for the private investors to understand that eggs should not be, all the eggs should not be put into one basket, it should be diversified. It's not about running after higher profits only or high yield, that there might be significant losses. And it's about more comprehensive assessment of all the products. If we look from the other hand, managing companies, for them, ETF products for private investors, this is a more complicated part, more cost-intensive. All these managing companies, we come into this business also to make money. And in order to create a product for private investors, it requires a lot of costs in order to establish it, in order to maintain it, and in order to make it profitable. It should be big. It should be a big product in terms of its volume to cover all the costs, and for managing company to make it profitable. This process is evolving. Yes, probably it's not moving as quick as we would like it to, but if we look historically, the market is now completely different compared to 4 years ago. We are seeing a lot more private investors. Professional investors are like experienced piloters, and then private investors pick up, follow their lead, and help them to own this product, to keep developing it, and to make it liquid. Now, okay, thank you very much, Yerzhan. Going back to the question of investing into Kazakhstani assets, because we would like to see to discuss development of the local market, and even if ETF you issued is local, even though it is Bitcoin link, which is not directly associated with Kazakhstan. But have you ever thought about ETF linked to Kazakhstani assets, and what is required to put together good fund of Kazakhstani assets? Thank you very much, Eugene. And just to say that Bitcoin has no nationality, and then why not? Kazakhstan might be one of the major jurisdictions of this asset. As for the Kazakhstani ETF, well, basically this is my dream. I want to create an ETF for Kazakhstani assets. I want to see it being traded with immense volumes. I would like it to reflect the condition and to be an indicator of the existing capital market. This is a dream, and of course, in order to achieve it, it requires some consistency. It requires a lot of steps, and not only for us as the participants of the financial system of Kazakhstan, but to all stakeholders as well, institutional investors, be it our insurance companies, pension funds, where now, as I see it, the share they are investing into this market is not significant. This is increasing capitalization of our local companies, but definitely such fund has its demand, and I believe we will see it pretty soon. And just recently I looked at the Kasa index dynamics. In 3 years it tripled. And if our investors would be just putting money into the local companies, their portfolio in 3 years would be also tripled. Threefold growth is indicating that we should be looking at our domestic assets because fundamentally they are undervalued. And basically, we are looking at some foreign capabilities, looking some liquid assets represented by Apple, Google, or Amazon. When just next to us we have sitting assets which can be growing quite quickly and quite profoundly. Being the Fonte capital, we will definitely be establishing one. We will try to develop it and evolve it, and I really hope that such product will be popular among our population, and it will be such an indicator of our economy to give access to foreign investors to come to Kazakhstan. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a quite motivating speech. I think all the people will start investing at once after this session. There are 2 national indices. AX also has its own index. And please, yes, pay attention to the national index. It's like a product placement. And Alexander, ETF ITS World product. It comprises the key Kazakhstani issuers into the global shares. But who will be more interested in this product? To foreign or local investors? And continuing the topic of unique assets of Kazakhstan overall, in your opinion, what kind of asset might be of interest for foreign investor here in Kazakhstan? Well, probably I was the first person who approached AFSA, our respected regulator, with an idea to establish ETFs at AFC. And the first fund, the first index fund, ITSW, was launched in November 2024, and it brought more than 20% to the investors in USD denomination due to its diversification. And what Maxim said, that initially we have bigger players, experienced guys, institutional investors, and then private investors will follow. We also observed that with our fund, even though it's not around for a very long time, with 5 million investments, they already have a profit of 1 million, and that's quite a good result. And private investors are also coming in, and with the Fund 1 and India single stocks, we launched with the retail stories, which are initially prioritizing retailer investors. The entrance is 10 USD. And there's also 1 million users. Currently we have thousands of them, but the numbers are growing quickly. When we constructed this fund of ETSW, the plan was it is diversified in terms of the regions, and it gives good result where there are trade wars this year, and there were major concerns about that. We also were quite concerned. United States went down with a higher speed, was decreasing. Asian part was behaving more conservatively in terms of the decreasing rates, and that was an enabler to ensure better balance and to protect retail investors. And as I mentioned initially, we wanted to see there, since it's a fund which is evolving on AFC and in Kazakhstan. We wanted to see biggest Kazakhstani issuers. We have KMG and Kaspi share there. They're acting quite beautifully, because one of the indicators is about liquidity, and for Kazakhstani securities are not very easy to access, and it takes us 3 months for all the verifications and adjustments, and it's a very big headache for our treasury experts. I think that it is going to take a lot of effort for Kazakhstan issuers to trust the local market, to go to the local platforms, not to go to London, because investors who open a lot of accounts for IPO and so on, for them to also buy from the companies they love, they know, and the products they are using, and they are aware of. For the products which might be of interest for the foreign investors, I believe that we are at the AFC territory that was initially created to have a seamless path for foreign investors to invest into the global and local securities and make such investment. That's the path we are following. We have different market participants from different jurisdictions, and of course we would expect from the regulator a lesser burden, to somehow decrease the burden on the brokers who are coming, who should get all these legal opinions for their licenses to be accepted. I think we can give a thought on how to simplify that for more foreign investors to come into the local securities. Well, we refer to the 5 funds, but how to calculate is another thing, because just on September 30 we launched 7 sub-funds, 7 single stocks, which are also launched for the retail investors. Those are mostly global securities, but KZA, this is a local security which is third here, which is being traded here. And if it's done properly, and for our colleagues who are working on their funds, and we're also working with that, if these interests are of interest for the investors and they are done with a good quality at the AFC platform, we will see foreign investors coming into our jurisdiction. Alexander, thank you very much. I wasn't able to calculate all your single stocks. Apologies. I've heard your constructive feedback about brokers. We have huge plans. Okay, that is very pleasing to hear. Alexey, the question is about the liquidity of our domestic market, whether we have sufficient volumes, including ETF. What are the factors to define liquidity of ETFs? And what are the recommendations you can share to the investors in order to assess liquidity before buying ETF? And how much Kazakhstani market is liquid now? Yes, of course. Liquidity of a separate ETF is defined by multiple factors. As this is a liquidity of the base assets in where the ETF invests. This is also the simplicity and the speed of the operations, volume of the fund. It is also about the number of the market makers, spreads they can support, hedging, risks of the market makers. There are a lot of factors, and what investors can see with their own eyes, those first of all spreads, and the volume of trading, and the volume of the fund itself. But all of this are the factors of the structure of the fund and liquidity of the assets in the fund. What is important here, in order to ensure Well, at the end of the day, what are the investors' interest? Guarantee of the transaction with a fair price. For that, ETFs are bought if the base assets are bought separately into the basket. And ETFs are very highly technological products where in the process of operations many agents are involved: managing company, stock exchange, market maker, registrar. And in order to ensure this guarantee, the process of integration between all the participants should be working almost online. Even going to the calculation of prices, how often and what are the requirements from the regulator in terms of the calculation of the prices. In some cases it might be 15 minutes. In other cases it's once per hour. But in theory, it can be done that the price of ETF at the same second or minute should be reflecting the price of the basket of basic assets. Another important factor for the market makers, they should be enabled to run transactions with the shares of ETFs with a minimum pre-deponing. So thus, market makers will not be restricted to the liquidity they have for this specific position in order to close the volumes where there is a demand. This is one of the key factors. That's what can be implemented with ETFs, because there is always a warranty from the managing company that it will be paid on the day. This is the secondary story. If the maximum level of technology and integration can be ensured, then I believe from the participants part, from the stock exchange part, such stories will be stimulated, such cases will be stimulated, and it will be serving as a basis for the development of a good high liquidity ETFs at the local market. Thank you very much. Summarizing today's panel session, I would like to mention that the stock exchange funds are becoming important element of the financial landscape of Kazakhstan. They are opening access to the local investor, to global markets, and to the global investors access to the unique national assets. We see interest towards the thematic ETFs, especially in digital assets and Islamic finance. We see diversification via international markets, especially at the volatile tenge exchange rate. This is a chance to have investment model via the stock exchange funds and with the investors' interest in mind. Now we will have the listing ceremony and launch of the trading of a new ETF. It's a Fonte Solana ETF. Today, this year, within AFD, we had several such ceremonies. One of the ceremonies is Fonte Solana. Colleagues will elaborate more about that. Colleagues from IX. I would like to thank all our speakers. Let's give them a round of applause. And I would like to ask you to proceed to your seats in the audience. And now I'm passing the floor to the stock exchange. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. Fonte Solana ETF, the first fund completely oriented towards the digital asset Solana. And another specificity is that it is open to a wider range of investors, including retail investors. We would like to invite the Minister of Digital Development, Aerospace Industry, Ruslan Madiev.
Good day, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. I think English is fine, right? So, or Russian, which one? Okay. So, because given the fact that we have a lot of guests coming from all over the world, I would like to welcome everyone for this event. Solana ETF event is one of the important milestones for the overall development of the crypto industry of Kazakhstan, because the government, the central bank of Kazakhstan are eager to develop very crypto-friendly and tech-savvy legislation and environment to promote the companies in the sector, to invite the companies to Kazakhstan to register, to open their regional offices. And we see that this momentum is ongoing right now. So the Solana ETF, we believe that will help to increase and speed up the adoption of the crypto use, the blockchain tech use in Kazakhstan, given that it makes to a certain group of population make convenient to get exposed to the instrument, to crypto assets, to use it as an asset class in the relevant portfolios. So I believe that's another plug-in to the overall financial industry to have such an instrument for diversification and make it kind of convenient to get into the asset without necessity to open the wallets as an investor, as an individual. And because we see what's going on in the world, the more and more ETFs are coming up into the market. The tens of billions of US dollars are being invested into the ETF, BTC, ETF, Solana, and so on. So I would like to wish the Fonte Capital, who is the initiator of the project, the success, and I hope that the market will pick up the story and continue the adoption and development of this DeFi industry. So thank you very much for coming. I would like to wish success to everyone.
Thank you very much. Дамы и господа,
Ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite CEO of AX, Asel Mukazhanova. Good afternoon, dear guests. We're happy to welcome you at the trading hall of AX. 2 weeks ago, at this room exactly, we started ETF for Bitcoin for the first time, and Yerzhan, jointly with colleagues, asked us, why shouldn't we try another launch 2 weeks later? And we did it. So it was a test for AX. I think we did well at this test, and most importantly, Yerzhan with the team receive a status of frequent issuer. This is a new title, and it is yours truly. We're not going to give it to anybody else. We will be happy if you come back to us again and again with new instruments, with some crazy, wild ideas. And just yesterday, we had a panel discussion at which I said that our principle, our AX principle, is never to say no to our clients. And I think we confirmed that, and we did well at the test. Thank you for that. Thank you. Now we would like to invite Director General of Capital Limited, Yerzhan Mussin. Dear participants, it is true that just 2 weeks ago we launched the first ETF for Bitcoin in Central Asia, and today we're launching first Solana ETF in the world. For us, it's not just a new product, It is a part of our strategy implementation where traditional finances meet innovations. We give opportunity and we launch new investment products for our investors. And as I see it, we strengthen the position of AFC at the international arena. I would like to thank the Ministry of Digitalization for the attention. I would like to thank IX, AFSA for this great work that we did together. And of course, we thank our partner, Solana Foundation. We thank all the participants of this infrastructure, of our local world of crypto assets. This is our custody and market makers. We thank you all for the work without which this project, this launch would not have happened. And special thanks goes to our investors. You are the ones driving the growth, driving everything that we are aiming for, and without your support, we would not be able to launch the products that yesterday were considered too complicated, too unrealistic, but today they are being launched on our stock exchange. I do believe that today is a historic day not only for our company, but for the whole Astana International Financial Center, for Astana, and for the country as a whole. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, the representatives of Solana Foundation were not able to come to Astana, but they sent their video greeting. Marketing Director of Solana on the video.
In order to join you this morning to mark this important milestone for Astana, Solana, and the global crypto community. What Fonte Capital has done today is more than just launch a fund. It is a signal of how far blockchain and digital assets have come in earning institutional recognition globally. And Kazakhstan, through the Astana International Financial Center, has shown real leadership in creating a regulatory environment for both innovation and investor protection to thrive and advance together. And very few jurisdictions are able to make that careful balance, which is why Astana is emerging as a global hub for the future of finance. For those of us working at the intersection of technology and markets, it's inspiring to see Kazakhstan take the leadership in making available these products to investors globally. And I'm incredibly grateful for the leadership and the tireless work of Minister Zasla and Governor Qanat, who have embraced this technology, embraced the founders and investors in the ecosystem. And we hope to see Kazakhstan take the leadership not just in Central Asia, but around the world. And so congratulations to Fonte Capital and to Kazakhstan for helping shape this new chapter. And I will end with my favorite Kazakh quote, Ba tyul bolmay, bakkayda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Дамы и господа, по традиции.
Ladies and gentlemen, and stock exchange gives tombstone to the company that is listed in ETF. Please come to the stage for this ceremony. Thank you. And finally, we are ready to press the button that will symbolize the launch of Solana ETF. Yerzhan, Mussin, and Fonte Capital team is invited to the stage to press the button. Congratulations. And now a group photo. Dear ladies and gentlemen, with that, listing ceremony comes to an end. Thank you so much for your attention.